Tzimtzum is the Kabbalistic concept of the Divine Self-contraction, the act in which God creates space for creation, an idea which had some play before Luria, Rabbi Isaac Luria, but under his thinking undergoes tremendous theological innovation and becomes a cornerstone of his metaphysical edifice. The theological ripples and implications of the concept of Tzimtzum for the subsequent history of Jewish mysticism following Luria are colossal and cannot be underestimated, and the ways which will be understood, interpreted, and debated will go on to shape and define the very parameters and possibilities of the question of God's relationship with the world and humanity for centuries. Simply put, if Tzimtzum, if this divine self-contraction is read literally, that God literally withdrew to create an empty space, a void, vacant, vacated arena for creation, absent of the presence of God, an overwhelming presence in the face of which nothing else could come into being or even entertain the illusion of an autonomous and separate existence from God, then there is room to say, excuse the pun, that because of this true void and vacuum in which the world subsequently exists, that God is really and literally absent and other than and from the world. That the divine remains untouched and unmanifest, resting safely on its side of the vacuum, and we stand here on the other side, fundamentally alienated and cut off from the realm of the real. This phenomenological experience that we feel of being a being, unaware of being as such, is, on Lurie's account, a direct product of Tzimtzum. Having laid this initial groundwork, let's see how this concept of Tzimtzum becomes a lot more nuanced at the hands of Lurie's disciples, successors, and inheritors. The aforementioned theistic overtones engendered by a literal reading of Tzimtzum are mitigated by two factors within the reading of the Tzimtzum narrative itself. The first is what becomes known as Tzimtzum Lav Kipshuto, the non-literal reading of Tzimtzum. A non-literal reading of Tzimtzum would mean that the divine contraction which caused the void, the Makom Hachalal, the space for creation, for otherness, only happens for and from the perspective of creation, of the hypothetical other. But, from God's point of view, according to this non-literal reading, there never really was an absence. God was always fully there, even in the void, present and self-aware. That, in brief, is Tzimtzum Lav Kipshuto, the non-literal reading of Tzimtzum. The second factor undermining a strict theism of a literal reading of Tzimtzum is the idea of Reshimu. Literally translated as residue, Reshimu refers to the residual light or divine self-consciousness left behind in the void created by the Tzimtzum. Like a forgotten melody lingering in the back of one's mind in which one is only conscious of knowing that one does not know it. Even on a literal reading of the Tzimtzum doctrine, the space made empty by God is not entirely empty. The metaphor given is like when one opens a cork and fully empties the content of a bottle of perfume, there is still some residual scent, traces of what was before left in the glass bottle. Reshimu is the trace left behind after the divine self-evacuates, self-excavates the Halal, the void which after all is not entirely void. Another important Kabbalistic concept to take note of in this context is the concept of the curtain or screen called either the Masach or Parsa, typically situated between the states of being or consciousness of Atzilus and Bria along the Great Chain of Being. If those terms mean nothing to you, don't worry. As we've been saying, the objective of the process of Seder Shtalshlut, of this Great Chain of Being, is to funnel the divine light, the divine life and consciousness through a series of reductions until it's reduced enough to be manifest in the worlds without metaphorically blowing them up. I say worlds intentionally, by the way, because for the Kabbalists, there are four primary manifest hierarchical worlds, or states of consciousness, from the top down: Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. For the Kabbalist, the alchemist of the Hebrew language, the Hebrew word for world, olam, shares the same meaning as the Hebrew word for concealment, he'elem. The world, via the process of Seder Shtalshlut, is where God is concealed and is the agent, the instrument of said concealment. The four worlds metaphorically can be thought of as four progressively filtered states of consciousness or awareness of the divine, and one can, through their spiritual work, ascend through those states and stages towards the divine, towards pure unity. But much like some contemporary theories of consciousness, if all of perception were made aware to us instantaneously, we would not be able to handle the stimuli. And in the rare chance our brains don't just go pop from the experience, we would certainly, at the very least, not be able to function and survive with that degree of input in our daily lives. Our worlds, therefore, our concealments, our minds, function as reduction valves to hold back the sheer immensity of being in the present moment and allow a space for a functioning world, a world of action, Olam Ha'asiyah as the Kabbalists call it, allowing beings such as us to be present without becoming ontologically overwhelmed by being itself. In this way, the world concept for the Kabbalists functions as both manifestation and concealment. By holding back the full intensity of the divine, it affords the opportunity for her very presence. What happens, by the way, according to some modern theorists, when an individual has a mystical or psychedelic experience, is precisely that metaphorical valve which is ordinarily open just enough to allow a steady drip of consciousness, adjusted perfectly for survival, loosens up and releases the floodgates of awareness, a torrent, a tidal wave of the raw, unfiltered light of being, which has the capacity to just totally shatter the individual's mundane awareness and tiny, illusory sense of being, and bathes them in the pure, radiant oneness of being itself. But for this experience to not be constantly happening, although God knows the world could do with a little bit more of it, the Kabbalists teach that at pivotal points along the great chain of being, the divine censors and self-restricts itself by metaphorically placing curtains to hold back, restrict and retain the blinding divine light from passing through, each one filtering out a different wavelength of the divine, so to speak. I'm using here metaphorical language for something which cannot be language, so excuse me. Among Luria's students, one by the name of Joseph ibn Tabul thought that what was filtered out by the curtains was precisely what he calls God's inner light, the Or HaPnimi. However, God's surrounding and encompassing light, the Or HaMakif, according to Ibn Tabul, does pass through the curtains. Which means that despite the restrictions placed by the curtains of consciousness, God or infinite presence and being, thanks to the surrounding light which passes through the curtains, or around the curtains, is present right here and right now. I hope that wasn't too much theology for one sitting. We spoke about the meaning of the doctrine of the Tzimtzum of Luria and the space that it creates and the space of play around it amongst his students, those reading it literally and non-literally. We ended off by speaking about the Masach and the Or Sovev, God's surrounding light which may pass through it, and its implications for cosmology and the implicit implications for psychology. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, or appreciation, make sure to pop down into the comments. We love hearing back from you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you once again to our patrons who generously support this project over here. And as always, keep seeking.